call the meeting to order. We are all present. Item 2, at the Commissioner's request, discuss any item of concern on the regular session agenda of October the 2nd, 2018.
Mayor, I do have one item on the claims list. I know this would shock you that I have something in the claims list. In Fund 40 capital improvements, we had an item on there for MTZ construction. It was an ADA compliance program, $48,367. And I'm just curious as to what that didn't really tell me very much about what it was.
Let me address that.
Well, thank you, Robert.
Robert.
Probably has to do with school sidewalks, but
Yes, it does. It is ADA compliance program to install sidewalks within 2 blocks of schools. MTZ is a contractor on the Coolidge School project, which is ongoing, and they're about to complete up that project. But they are installing sidewalks, and that's like I think it's about right now we're about $289,000, and we'll probably add a little more to the work to get to $300,000. But they are the contractor for that project, and basically have wrapped up the work that we've got for them at the moment. And you'll probably see a change order in the future to add some additional work at Coolidge School to finish that sidewalk project.
Are they going to continue it until they get all of the schools in this program, or are they just going to apply to certain ones?
The program is actually termed by the ADA Compliance Board, but at this point, my understanding is we'll continue until we continue through that program, and as long as schools are the priority, we'll continue with the schools until we complete them all. Yes, sir.
Okay,
I say they are the priority, and we'll continue that program as funds provide.
thank you.
Yes, sir.
The ones we've done are really nice
Yeah.
and used.
Oh, that work around Adams looks fantastic.
They're really nice.
you're right.
One of my friends sent me a picture of that Coolidge one. It looks really nice.
Yeah, they've been going at it over there for quite a while.
7 years I've been trying to get that done.
There you go.
Anyone else?
Persistence pays.
Item 3, update on Call Lake Water Supply Project. Chris?
Thank you, sir.
Michael?
As you know, we're getting ready to launch the next phase of this program. So what we thought we'd do is come in, give you a brief summary of what we plan on doing, and see if you had any questions, and we'll let Michael take it from here.
Thank you, Chris. Good evening, Commission, Mayor. Thank you for the invitation to provide you a brief program update. We'll give you an update on the status, talk briefly about the Phase 3 scope and fee, and then update you on the remaining program schedule moving forward. So, we've been at this a little while now, about 3 years. Phase 1 is obviously complete. We finished up Phase 2 in July, secured funding over the summer, and we are about to embark upon Phase 3, which will encompass final design, land acquisition, continuation of the environmental permitting that started in Phase 2, and then the early preparation of bid documents for the construction phase that will commence in Phase 4. More specifically, the Phase 3 scope of services involves Garver's support in the selection of final design consultants, design oversight of those final design consultants in their preparation of bid documents for construction. We will also be updating the preliminary design to reflect the changes that the Commission decided on as a result of the phasing plan. You'll recall that the preliminary design was for full build-out, and that will require some updating to reflect those phasing changes. There'll also be design of common elements across the program, things like valves, meters, generators, security, a supervisory control and data acquisition system. That's SCADA. That's the remote monitoring and control of the system. Design of those common elements will be done as part of this amendment as well. Also included are land acquisition services, the negotiating of land acquisition. A very in-depth and detailed and significant topographic survey of the nearly 70-mile pipeline alignment. And then,
Backing up just a bit, on the land acquisition, we've contracted with somebody now that's going to actually perform the land acquisition.
yes, that's part of this scope of work. That will be a sub-consultant of ours. I introduced that group at my last update
And when do we expect them to get underway?
tomorrow, assuming approval.
Sounds like soon enough.
Yeah.
How long do you think that'll take, Michael?
We have a schedule specific to that item, about 18 months. Best case, there's some wiggle room there in both directions.
We understand that all too well.
Finalizing the environmental assessment that I mentioned started in phase 2, and then ongoing program administration and controls, the progress reporting, maintaining the master schedule, cash flow analysis, making sure that the program budget is maintained and that you have cash flow when you need it to make payments to final design consultants and so forth. This represents the overview of the fee associated with the scope of work. Again, I just discussed those items. I'm prepared to go into more detail if you have any questions about each one of those line items. But from program administration through controls and reporting, the land acquisition step. Now, I want to be clear, that land acquisition step does not include the purchase of the property. That's just the services associated with negotiating the purchase. Final design support and updating the funding profile and schedule. That'll be a very key component, something that the commission is probably familiar with. We did that at the end of each phase where we bring to you the updated cost estimates and a funding profile and schedule for construction at this step. This is an hourly contract. We only invoice for hours that we actually work on the project. It includes a 15-month duration, and if commission approves the contract tonight, we anticipate a notice to proceed tomorrow.
How does that work with an hourly contract that has a guaranteed minimum?
Guaranteed maximum.
Well, the language says, let's make sure I'm not wrong here. Oh, I apologize.
You couldn't be wrong.
No. In this instance, I am very much.
That's a fair question.
If it doesn't
I'm
say-
reading on tiny letters on my screen here. But it is a guaranteed maximum. Okay.
It's a not to exceed.
Okay.
Ben, I have the.
That makes a lot more sense.
I have
Oh,
the
yeah.
biggest letters I can put on
Those are
here.
tiny letters.
I know.
The level of effort involved in this next phase is quite significant. There's nearly 33 full-time equivalents associated with this project. So as you might expect, the amount of work that needs to be done to take what we've done to date, you will recall, is we've taken this program to the 30% complete design step. So in addition to the land acquisition component of this next phase, we're taking that 30% through the use of maybe up to 8 different design consultants to 100% complete, from 30% to 100% complete. So we're bringing on much more horsepower to complete that effort.
How
in
many of
this
those
phase.
will be full-time equivalents once we finish and get started pumping water?
How many of those design consultants?
Of the 33, I know that some of that will be, they'll just work themselves out of a job.
Well, at the end of this phase, this chart will change for the professional services associated with phase 4.
That was
So,
the question.
yeah, that will be updated at the end of this phase and the beginning of the next phase.
We have to create some new jobs.
Well, this is certainly quite a few right here.
True.
And finally, re-baselining the original schedule. As you all recall, at our last update, it was the same day that we secured the funding, which was a great day for the city of Enid. And that took some time to figure out the best route to go, and with advisement of your financial advisors, made that decision, and that time kind of moved this schedule from a July 1 phase 3 start date to an October 1 phase 3 start date. So that has been reflected in this new schedule. It did move the construction bar at the bottom there out just a little bit. We're currently showing everything still completing by the end of 2022. So we're still holding on to that date as we speak. So I think that is our last update slide, and prepared to answer any questions you might have.
Go ahead.
I'm just gonna, on that final design, that's a big part of the process. And what's the biggest part of the construction program is, takes up the final design? Like what, you know, I know we've had a lot of work done already on the design of the water treatment plant and a lot of those kind of things. I just wondered what,
The component, the infrastructure piece that will consume the most engineering time from here is going to be the water treatment plant.
okay.
The material and construction cost will be the pipeline, because it's 70 miles of 36-inch pipe.
So basically, the water pipeline itself has already been designed.
For the most part, it's up to 30%. They'll have to continue that through 100% plus provide the necessary input that we need to finalize the construction permitting. But for the most part, it's fairly.
So the part of the water treatment plant that we've seen designed is basically the buildings, it's not the process.
If I may, Chris, the whole program is at 30% complete, including the water treatment plant. What you have seen are conceptual renderings of those buildings, interior and exterior. Now, it is our intent that will not change dramatically between 30% and 100%. But it's far from construction-ready design. Yeah, and we just, as part of the phasing plan, we decided the treatment train. So that was a key decision that was made in the last phase. But all the elements, Ron, are at 30%. This phase engages additional resources from up to 8 different design consultants to help us take it from 30% to 100%.
Chris, we have a $20 million loan, and we've applied $12 million. Help me with the other $8 million of that $20 million loan.
Yeah, Mayor, if you could help us on, there's roughly, you know, we had 2 loans
Yes,
for approximately 45 and 20, about $65 million.
That's exactly right.
I got excited too. I thought, whoa, we got all this extra money for it. Well,
No,
our
you don't.
engineers have helped spend it. Could you give them just kind of a rundown of that $65 million if you have that? handy?
Engineers always spend the money.
It takes a long time to sign the $65 million in loans. Trust me.
Yeah, there are elements of this 12.1. There's the final design contracts that are yet to come through.
Which
That'll-
is to hire engineers to get to 100%.
Correct,
that's right.
On the 5 design components or however many there are.
Right, right. So that's another big chunk of that. There's the water storage rights contract with the Army Corps of Engineers, another big chunk of that. There's the land acquisition itself, which is another major piece of that. That's a little bit more geotechnical work.
And that's all phase 3.
Yes.
Yeah.
The $65 million.
We won't consume all 65 million in phase 3. Part of the reason why we did the way we did is our financial advisors recommended that we close the other loan as well because of the rates that we can get.
Sure.
And the fact that we treat it as a construction, like you would a normal construction loan for personal construction of a house. We don't pay on it until we draw on it.
Like a line of credit.
Exactly.
Well, that's good. We don't want to pay interest if we don't have the money.
Do we own?
Sorry. Go ahead.
Does the city own the project management software data?
Oh, yes. And it'll be deliverable in formats that we can use. We are not buying the project management software in this program, but we are getting the data in usable methods. Everybody who's working on this program will have to use the same software,
Okay.
follow the same forms.
So if they go file bankruptcy or get hit by a bus or
Boom, we got it.
whatever, we can, okay.
And it'll really help us out in the finance department and in the auditing process. Because when you submit your invoices, Aaron, we're gonna lay out a form that they have to submit with it.
Are you confident with that 18-month time window for the BIA land acquisition component? I mean, you have one 18-month window for the whole land acquisition, but I know the BIA is kind of part is chunked out a little bit separately.
Yeah.
How do we feel about that? part?
Specifically to the BIA, yes.
Okay.
I think we're in really good shape there. The entire 240 pieces of property that we're gonna be dealing with, fairly confident. I think I reported the last time I spoke with you guys, that's the largest risk on this program.
Yeah.
Schedule-wise.
From a schedule standpoint, is acquiring the property. But I'm pleased to report that things have been pretty positive. I think we're having what I would characterize as positive conversations with approximately 99% of the property owners that we have here. So there's always, I mean, we would expect 90. But I think,
Okay.
And when you think out of 240 parcels, and we're at 99%, I only know of 2 parcels that we haven't really gotten to a good spot yet.
Okay.
But I think it's doable.
That's doesn't
Better
sound
odds
too
than
bad.
I hate to be super optimistic though. I mean, we're still early.
Sure.
But that's the latest report that I can give to you.
Okay.
To me, in the long run, all that pipe's gonna be below the ground.
Oh, absolutely.
How deep is it going to be?
48 inches minimum,
48
4 feet,
to the top of the pipe,
to the top of the pipe.
4 feet, and another 4 feet, 8 feet deep.
Mhm.
And to me, that's the beauty of it, because you don't have a whole lot of it above the ground.
Or it's not too shallow that you're gonna get into it with a plow or something.
And as we cross property, you know, we'll do what we need to do to get the air valves at the fence rows out of the way. Any valves that we have to have put in there, get them out of the way, so they don't interfere with the use of the surface.
How many acres are in the two tribal lands? 240 quarters is only 60 miles.
240 parcels,
Parcels.
240 parcels,
not quarters.
Not quarters?
not quarters. 240 separate pieces of property, 100 feet wide.
Okay, okay.
So we're crossing six.
I was doing the easy math.
6 6 Ponca properties. 3 are in trust, which are managed between the property owners and the BIA. And 3, I believe, are private property owners who are members of the Ponca tribe.
What about the Osage?
Not touching any of their property. We're going through their mineral estate,
Okay.
but we're not crossing their property.
Which two are crossing? The Ponca and what else?
We're crossing the Poncas and the Osage.
Okay,
Osage jurisdiction, Ponca jurisdiction.
okay.
So part of the pipe, part of this water pipe will go under I-35.
Yes.
So all future construction will be eliminated in that area with the pipe being 48 inches in depth.
That's 48 inches below the grade at the toe of the embankment of the
Okay.
interstate. And will be probably lower than that. ODOT's very good about specifying exactly what they'll let us do and exactly how they'll let us bore it.
Do they bore all that under the highways?
We'll bore the interstate for sure,
Sure.
and most of the paved roads.
The reason why I asked that question is just in case we get an individual that's trying to go around, you know, getting permits to dig, you know, as far as Okie.
Yeah, yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
I see.
You
I see
where
what
I'm
you're
coming
saying.
from.
Mhm.
These will end up being recorded easements at the courthouse, right? So
Correct.
all the digging companies will have access to that. And I'm sure we'll have probably posted signs about pipeline, things like that.
And we've talked about leak detection and failure, consequences of failure and so forth. That Lou will have the opportunity to monitor from the water treatment facility and so forth.
If
And
the-
some will try to get away with it.
If the WIFIA process goes anywhere, and at this point we don't know if it will, is that included in this contract, or will we need to contract additional stuff with you guys to get that done?
For which part? Support and development?
Yeah, support,
We've got that
my
rolled.
understanding of the WIFIA process is that it's monumentally complicated and will likely necessitate some additional.
Well, we've actually
stuff.
accomplished all that.
All that.
The remainder, from my understanding, the
from the engineering
remainder
side.
of the WIFIA work will
Tell
be
me what
relatively.
that means.
It's one of the
Water,
funding,
infrastructure,
Finance.
finance.
it's one of the funding options that we submitted kind of a preliminary application to apply. I mean, it's not, we're not there yet, and it may not be even the best terms, but I think it was excluded from the public law contract we just did, wasn't it? That if we do
Yes.
a WIFIA program, we'll
It
have to pay
was.
them some additional amount. I wasn't sure if it was also
Yeah.
getting carved out of this.
Now, we have included in this phase, the coordination of making that application.
Okay.
And obviously with a mindset of, if that comes along, managing how those funds are dispersed and tracked.
And that is wrapped into this. Okay,
Into this.
thank you.
It does not, it won't include the application fees,
Well, no.
because
I
we don't
kinda
know what
assumed.
that is yet, but.
But again, our financial advisor will do an analysis at the time too that we get. First of all, we have to be invited.
Yeah.
We haven't been invited to participate yet. And then we get the privilege, if we are invited, of paying a bunch of fees and stuff. So if it turns out to be advantageous, I would anticipate those funds to be used in the future phase.
Sure, sure.
Construction primarily.
There were only 2 projects in Oklahoma that submitted.
Who was the other project besides us?
It wouldn't even be competing with you because there's 2 categories. One's the large project category, which obviously you're in, and Locust Grove, Oklahoma, was the small project category.
What
No
about-
other competition in Oklahoma.
Is the
That
Oklahoma,
helps. I don't want you to be overly optimistic.
is the Oklahoma City pipeline, 100-mile pipeline a competition of ours?
No.
It's going to Sardis, I think.
Yeah. Not for funding, it's not for the WIFIA funding.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael.
You're welcome.
Item 4, discuss the community center development from the comprehensive plan. Chris?
Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, Mayor, let me kick this off just briefly. This is an opportunity for us to talk to you about the comp plan. We want to do that at every opportunity we can, specifically where we talk about commercial nodes in the terminology that's coming up specifically related to a rezoning that's going to be coming to you in the near future near the Cleveland and Garriott area on the north side of the road. So I think Chris has put together a very nice presentation, but I know that this is just a plan, and the plan is conceptual in many of the pieces, meaning there's not exact dimensions of commercial nodes and things. So I know there's some discussion, some other discussion that we're going to have that ideally, hopefully this facilitates for you to have about what you want your comp plan to be and do. So
Thank you, Gerald.
thanks, Chris.
The slide in front of you is our land use plan. That's a piece of paper that's inside the comprehensive plan. What the plan does is it's your vision, and it helps you shape your decisions on how you want to develop your community. And this particular slide shows all of Enid, and I'll draw your attention to downtown, which is right here. If you recall, we had a destination center there. That's a very important piece of our community. The Guernsey, who provided our plan, identified another destination on West Garriott. These are conceptual. That's a floating square, if you will. It's not exact. The plan is a vision. It isn't a how-to type plan. It's just that recognizing we have significant things downtown, we have significant retail experience on West Garriott, and we need to continue. That's what the plan says. The next level is you'll see these larger circles, and those are referred to as community centers. They are designed not only to satisfy the retail needs of the people living right in that area, but it takes the entire community to support those community centers. The smaller ones that you see on there are neighborhood. They primarily provide services to the immediate adjacent neighborhoods. And then there's some cross-hatching here. May be hard for you to see. It's kind of in 3 different areas. That's designated as redevelopment. So my next slide, there's all the legends. You can read this, but it's kind of what I just said. The community centers serve the whole community. Neighborhoods serve primarily the immediate neighborhood, and redeveloping, that may be a term, it's always been in the plan, but maybe something you haven't focused on or we haven't talked about very much, but that's redeveloping residential neighborhoods that need some targeted investment in them. The area that we're focused on tonight to deal with the rezoning that's coming to you in the near future, it'll be in front of the Planning Commission on October 15th, is for a coffee shop, and it's near this intersection of Garriott and Cleveland where we have a community center, and then you see this cross-hatching here. That does go all the way to the corner. My next slide shows the existing area. This would be Garriott, this is Cleveland, so you can begin to see the size of the community center. It adequately represents the type of development and commercial retail that's going on. The yellow box represents the rezoning that's coming for a coffee shop at this location. They're seeking C1. Are there any other questions that I can answer? That's primarily my presentation. Yes, Commissioner.
There's a, looking across the street at the area we're trying to develop, I'm curious to.
Right here?
Why would we want to put a coffee shop on the other side of the street from an area we're trying to develop into commercial?
Well, the development such as this comes from the private sector, and we have an individual that that's what their vision is for that location, and they're going to be asking you if you'll change that zoning so that can happen.
How many residential lots are in that rezoning area there?
Here?
Yeah.
That's one lot, Commissioner.
The big lot.
This is the Garland addition in this general area you see here. But that's just one, that's a house there that they're going to convert into a coffee shop.
It looks like it takes up a whole block.
Well, see these smaller lots?
Yeah.
It may have been
It's half a
three in
block.
there. I just don't know. I can find that out.
It looks like it's half a block, because you can see it's half a block from Arthur to Garland.
This is an alley right here.
Okay, that's
along
That's an
Garrett
alley.
frontage.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a block would be from here to Park. That would be a block. But, you know, it's probably 3 lots is what I would guess has been combined into one property.
There's quite a bit of mixed use over there.
Well, not in that neighborhood. And in that neighborhood, that entire area going from Arthur Street all the way to Johnson is completely residential.
Yeah.
Now, from Johnson going east is commercial and will probably continue to become more commercial. And everything across the street is commercial, and everything Arthur going west is commercial. But that area from Arthur to Johnson is completely residential. This would be the only commercial spot in that entire neighborhood. And that neighborhood is opposing this vehemently because they do not want one commercial spot right in the middle of, or in their neighborhood, because first of all, they've already got lots of traffic anyway. This is gonna reroute traffic through their neighborhood that they don't want. And like you said, you've got commercial on 3 sides of this neighborhood, and it doesn't make any sense to put one right there.
I mean, but that's a totally arbitrary designation, Tammy. There's mixed use all throughout there. I mean, if you
No,
define the,
there's not. That
well,
neighborhood isn't.
don't interrupt me, please. If you define the neighborhood by just the, 4 or like 6 contiguous blocks we're looking at, there isn't, but we have a commercial operation. We have Hinson, which is only another block north. We have Garriott frontage, I mean, all across the street that's commercial, obviously, but just a couple blocks further down, there's Jim Henderson's property management is just another block north. There's like a little mechanic shop just a couple blocks away. That may be just on the other side of Johnson. There's like a home design place that's right in there. And it's all Garriott frontage. I mean, it's crazy to imagine that Garriott frontage across the street from where we are clearly interested in developing isn't going to be commercial. I mean, that's just,
Wasn't there?
that's crazy.
There's someone selling insurance and.
Yeah, there's an insurance,
It's further,
Further to
it's
the east.
east
Well,
of
but
Johnson.
2 blocks. I mean, it's
Right
2
on the
blocks
corner.
away from where we're talking
Right,
about.
but that's what I'm saying, from Johnson east, that's all commercial. They're
Right,
not the
but-
only commercial thing, there's a whole bunch of commercial property.
I'm just saying you're picking an arbitrary designation to say that it's
They're
completely.
picking an arbitrary
that
designation
it's a
to put a
completely
coffee shop.
contiguous. No, okay.
They are.
Let's pick up. We have 2 different standards. I think the argument you're making is arbitrary because you're saying that it's a totally residential neighborhood when it's only a totally residential neighborhood if you very narrowly define the neighborhood. If you broadly define the neighborhood as what is zoned as the district, I mean, what is not zoned, what is platted as what district or what.
It's the Garland addition.
The Garland edition
Right.
is full of, the Garland edition broadly is full of mixed use. I mean, you also have huge amounts of money being spent to commercially develop that whole area, including us. And, you know, the decision to make a coffee shop on Garriott doesn't seem like that crazy a reach. I mean, if a private owner wants to make a business on Garriott, it seems crazy of us to push back against that. It's the busiest road in town.
Chris,
In the middle of a neighborhood.
are
Well,
there,
it's not in the middle of a neighborhood. It's on the edge of a neighborhood on a highway.
Well, it literally is across the street from where everybody
from
was
a
screaming
coffee
out putting
shop?
a Target.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
if the coffee shop is going to drive that much, you know, traffic, particularly when it's right across the street from the Starbucks and all these other things that are right there, I don't see it increasing by that much by putting a coffee shop there.
I already drive up Arthur to get from Starbucks to my office an embarrassing number of times a week. I mean, there's already a lot of traffic through there. I don't think this is going to increase that. I know that Bill Andrews worked up about it. I know a couple other residents are worked up about it, but I don't think my impression from talking to folks over there, and my office is not terribly far from there, is that there are a handful of people who are really, really upset, but the vast majority of people really couldn't possibly care, just based on it's already how that area has grown.
Chris, are there deed restrictions in that housing addition
There,
to not allow for commercial development?
Yes. And,
Why are we even getting into this?
Because they
If
had,
there-
a-
it has
just a
been
second.
lifted.
because they had a lawsuit and they got the deed restrictions removed from that one area.
Who is they?
The people that own that property.
Which has also been done by about half a dozen other property owners all the way up along Garriott.
Yeah, based on the fact that the neighborhood, that a residential use is no longer viable for that particular lot. It has been vacant for quite a while.
Yeah.
I don't understand. That neighborhood's been there for 80 years.
No, the court said that he could lift it. And so there are no deed restrictions currently because the deed restrictions have been lifted by court order. You can't, they don't exist anymore as
Yeah.
to that
As
given
to
tract.
that
I think
spec-
we're asking for trouble.
I think so too.
Well, but
as-
but Bill, go
That's my opinion.
Literally-
Bill. That's my opinion.
literally a block and a half north and we have,
I know I drive that area all the time.
yeah,
just like you do.
it's already mixed use. And our whole comp plan is about encouraging mixed use. And
I
When
think
it
we're
makes
asking for
sense.
trouble.
And in my experience there in that area, because I live not far
It
from there
wasn't
too,
on
is
the
that
title
you
of
can't
the
possibly
people
make the traffic any
in
worse
there.
than it is. No, you can't.
certainly not a small coffee shop is
Well,
going to have.
I don't care what you put in there, it's not gonna.
The seven of us don't,
We have traffic blocked all the way from Cleveland.
Today.
Clear to Johnson every evening.
the seven of us don't have that problem because we don't live in that area.
Well.
But if you live in that
not right
area,
there.
they've got a logical complaint.
Oh,
Okay,
I-
but Bill, that's not how we make a determination. We don't make zoning determinations based on what the neighbors do or don't want. That's not the
Of
standard
course we
that.
do, that's why we
That's
send
not
out
the standard
notice and
that.
let them
in-
d-
No, but that's
dispute.
not the legal standard that we apply.
Well, that's
They
your
can
opinion.
protest.
That's your opinion.
I guess it would be
I don't agree.
a fair argument not to develop the property that's literally right across the street from that same area then, and turn that, and develop that commercially as well, because that's gonna increase traffic.
Way more.
Way more than what we're talking about with a coffee shop that may have 10 to 15 people at any given time inside of the place. We're talking about putting a massive commercial area there. To me, it just doesn't track. Either we're gonna develop this area or we're not.
And we also don't,
So
aren't
we're
there,
gonna redevelop
go ahead.
existing neighborhoods that are not,
We're not redeveloping that property. What we're saying is that, hey, there's an individual who wants to take a property that hasn't been able to have anybody come in and live in it for an extended period of time, and develop that property to make it a better tax-paying entity again, as opposed to it
You've
just
got the
sitting there
same-
vacant.
You've got the same situation right next to McAllister's.
Okay? Is
Yeah.
somebody willing to come in and pay and develop it?
Can't answer that.
This is,
It's for sale.
But we can for this one right here. Somebody's bought it and they're willing to put money into it in order to be able to make it a tax-paying entity. Why would we turn them away?
yeah, it seems crazy that we would tell somebody who has purchased a building, who wants to put in a low traffic, this is not gonna be a high traffic kind of deal. It's a coffee shop and a house. I love coffee shops and old houses, but it's not like you ever have more than a dozen folks in there at best. And we want to take tell these folks that, no, this piece of property across the street from the hottest commercial spot in Enid on the busiest highway in Enid, across the street from 2 other big commercial things. No, you can't do commercial there. That seems crazy.
Well, Starbucks is a coffee shop, and I think they have a lot of business, a lot more than a few cars a day.
Well, but I think Starbucks is a commercial coffee shop with a drive-through. This is a little coffee shop in an old house. They're not tearing it down. I mean, they're remodeling the house. And as just for the sake of comparison, if you go to a lot of other cities, there will be a little coffee shop that, you know, doesn't have a drive-through. You just walk up, and it's a much smaller traffic area. Starbucks, just by virtue of being on the corner and by being a big national chain, will always have more volume. But I mean, they don't even have parking to support the kind of volume that Starbucks will. They'll
We're
be
talking about 10, 12 cars at any given time at best.
Yeah, it's disingenuous to say that this little coffee shop is going to change the traffic for anyone in there.
We all have our opinions and they're different.
Anybody that's
Yeah.
trying to turn into that area that's going east on Owen K. Garrett, almost any time of day, it's almost impossible to get across there.
Mhm.
Because you're so close to that intersection, you're almost gonna have to be going west on that road to even have access to it. And then coming out, if you wanna go east, you're in trouble again. You're probably gonna go through the neighborhood and around the block so that you can get to the corner to
I think
go back the
this
other way.
Chris,
study is
what
for
are we
the
gonna vote
community.
on when this
communities.
comes to the city council?
What was it, November 7th?
Yeah,
November
it's-
6th.
it's
What?
not-
6th, thank you.
Yay or nay?
The other concern is that if this zoning is changed, and the coffee shop is great and dandy and fine, that if it doesn't stay there very long, the other concern is what else might go in there after that, because it's a commercial property. And this is a residential neighborhood, and they do have valid concerns about the kind of businesses that go in their neighborhood. Any neighborhood has that concern.
It's called-
I recall that, weren't there concerns about a Quick Trip going in your area that you didn't love?
No,
You've never had that concern,
No.
ever, in the
I
entire
have
time?
not. I would be thrilled to have another quick trip in my
Well,
neighborhood.
you know what they'll do, Tammy, they'll flip it.
Well, and that's a concern. That's what the neighborhood is concerned about, what, not necessarily a coffee shop, because coffee shops are not particularly threatening, but they are concerned about what may go there later if the zoning is changed.
Okay, well, first of all,
I'm
we don't.
just
I agree
relaying,
with
I'm
Tammy.
just relaying my constituents' concerns.
Okay, but first of all, that is not how we make determinations we have a specific property owner who's been working on this for going on 2 years to put in a coffee shop here, who already owns a coffee shop in town, who has demonstrated that they can run a business. They put a huge amount of time and money into it, and they've been, I mean,
Well,
This is-
bring it to us and we'll vote it up or down.
I know, it just seems,
This is a broader argument,
Yeah.
discussion
But
about
I
we're
mean,
having
the
this discussion
community
because
center
of this
development.
issue.
yeah.
Yeah.
Though
We're
certainly,
having this discussion
certainly
because of
more
this issue.
broadly, our comp plan.
This is why it's on the study
Our comp plan
session.
overwhelmingly encourages mixed use, doesn't discourage it.
It doesn't mean to go and disrupt existing neighborhoods either.
But it does though, Tammy. I mean, the comp plan specifically has mixed use in neighborhoods.
Right, so when you're talking about that, in my mind, that means things like Stonebridge and the Walmart that were pre-planned to be that way, not just going sticking random businesses in the middle of
But it's
neighborhoods.
not. It is showing throughout our whole comp plan that there are nodes where we would benefit from having mixed use, and that's not going to be come drop in a whole project. It's going to be gradual redevelopment. It's going to be encouraging mixed use next to each other. I mean, all the way along Broadway. No one is assuming that Broadway is somebody's going to come lift everything up and chunk in a new development. It's always going to be incremental, and thankfully we have seen some new use in Broadway and people putting more money on East Broadway, and I'm thrilled. And that does mean we have a pizza shop next to a used furniture store, next to apartment complexes, next to single family complexes, next to a church and a school, and that's great. That's what our whole comp plan encourages. And it's crazy that people are saying, oh, we can't possibly have more commercial at Cleveland and Garriott.
It's not at Cleveland and Garriott.
It is literally, I could
It's
throw a
literally
rock from
not.
it
It's
and
on
hit
Arthur and
Cleveland.
Garriott. It's
I could
not
throw a
Cleveland.
rock and hit Cleveland and
Your
Garriott.
arm is not that good, Lynn.
We'll
Your arm is
have
not
no
that
rock
good.
throwing here.
Yeah, can we go try? I mean, really, it's crazy.
This has been a good discussion, and Tammy's right, this is why this is on the study session. It's a chance for you to talk about it and understand too that this, as we said, this is a guide, this is a vision, a concept. Those circles
It's not
aren't
the Bible.
clearly defined, so in the end, you guys determine.
Yeah.
And you'll determine that through MAPC on the 15th, and you guys will get it again on November 6th. And then the standard will be 4 votes will change the zoning unless the protest level is more than 50%
Within 300 feet.
within 300 feet.
So that would be 300 feet this way, this way, this way, and this way.
Seems unlikely.
Right, so we'll find out if that happens or not, but anyway, you'll get a chance to weigh in. Chris, I wanted you to explain, because there was a question about the type of businesses or stuff. They're requesting C1, which is a little bit different, still commercial, but
We didn't want, the actual ordinance, what listed would take up way more than a slide, so I paraphrased here. But the intended use of C1 is neighborhood support, low intensity, low density, commercial and retail uses. That's what that is for. So what you mostly see is C3 zoning, and that a lot of different things can happen in C3. So it's a lesser commercial zoning. It is the least amount of zoning to accommodate the coffee shop and the owner.
Can you tell us who they is?
Oh, yes, it's Nick Jackson. That's the owner of the property.
Dave Da Vinci's coffee shop.
They own Da Vinci's?
Yeah, Nick does, and among other things, but
I think he has a third one in the works as well, and
mhm.
On Broadway.
on South Van Buren.
Yeah.
I don't know about Broadway, Commissioner. I know there's this site we're talking about here this evening.
That's a whole different
And
bag of
Da
cookies. That's a
Vinci's-
whole different bag of cookies on
Yeah.
South Van Buren.
Yeah.
So there's something in on Broadway.
So he's definitely making a coffee shop presence within our community.
you know, I want to say one other thing, Mayor, just to respond on the restrictions. We respect those deed restrictions, and so when they come to the city and their deed restrictions, our office, Chris and his staff, recognize that, and we tell them that they need to, there's deed restrictions. So we told them that, and they had to take that to court and go through that process.
The history is this property that's coming before you on November 6th went in front of the Planning Commission about 2.5 years ago. And the Planning Commission, staff made them aware, and at that point in time, their recommendation was contingent that the owner, Nick Jackson, got the restriction lifted before it went on to the City Commission. And that the thought was at that time it would happen fairly quickly. Nobody imagined it would take over 2 years, and it did. So because that time frame has gone so long, we're going to go back through the Planning Commission, even though they looked at it 2 years ago.
And I think the same property owners, the same 2 or 3 property owners that are being awfully noisy about this, fought him at the court action and lost.
We did
And
receive a
They
protest
settled.
on this.
Yeah.
I don't know that they lost, I think they settled.
Well, I mean, he got the deed restriction lifted. I mean,
Well, I
that
think
is
they
a,
settled, I don't think they
Sure.
were voted against.
well, you don't vote in court, but he did, but he got the deed restriction
Judged,
lifted, so.
adjudicated, what the hell
I mean,
ever you
that-
wanna call it.
that counts as
I
a
don't
win.
think the judge made the decision, I think it was settled
Sure.
out of court.
I just mean, he got the deed restriction
He
lifted,
did get
so
the deed restriction.
that counts as a win.
So yes, Gerald, we did catch it at our level, and now it's ready to proceed, and the commission can determine what's best.
If it passes, how long will it take him to develop it?
I have not been told that. I don't have an answer. I can find out.
If it fails, what happens?
I know he owns it. He can certainly use
Two
it.
simple questions.
Well, I can't speak on behalf of the owner,
Somebody
but,
has to.
but from a zoning standpoint, it's zoned residential, so he certainly could use it for any approved residential use.
Mayor, if it fails, he won't be able to have a coffee shop there because it won't be zoned commercial. He'll still
I
own it.
understand that, sir.
Well, he will have spent 2.5 years trying to add something to our community and been shot down because of a couple neighbors.
I understand that. I understand that. But, never mind. Pass.
Well, we won't answer your question.
I don't have a question, Gerald.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Item 5, discuss Commons Crosswalk Project.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about a commons project. This project has been, I don't even know how long this has been desired by members of the community that may or may not be here tonight. I don't
At least
see them.
5 years.
At least 5 years. You know the history well, Ron,
Yes,
so, I'm very pleased
Brought this
with,
up a couple times.
it's finally come together to this point, and these guys are gonna tell us what's gonna happen and when it's gonna happen.
Just real quick, just kind of a quick overview of what the project actually is. It's located at the Commons, which is the United Methodist Church home. Not sure the exact title of it, but it's located north of Garrett, along Oakwood. In the area, there isn't any kind of crosswalks down at the intersections of Garrett. The next intersection is all the way up at Randolph, so that's why it was brought to us to get a crosswalk in the area. Here's a kind of a zoom in of the area. This is La Mesa Drive, and this is one of the entrances into the Commons. Here's kind of the design that we came up with. It's just a basic crosswalk. There's approximately, there it is, approximately 70 linear foot of 5 foot sidewalk. I just have standard crossing. And there is also, there'll be 2 sets of flashing crosswalk signs. There'll be a large standard one that's at the crosswalk, and then approximately 100 foot north and south of the crosswalk, there'll be crosswalk ahead signs. Nothing out of the ordinary really on the project. It's parallel curb ramps just to get them to fit into the area. The east side is actually pretty steep right there, and so that's what they're needed for there. Then obviously the existing drainage structure that's on the west side, in order to get it from the street line up to the curb there, was needed.
Jason, would you use the pointer to help? orient?
Okay, yeah, the signs that I'm talking about are here, and then up there, there'll be, there's the other sign there, and down there at the bottom of the map's the other sign. I think that's really kind of all the points that I wanted to cover. Everett's gonna, here's this map too. Sorry, I forgot about having this plan here. In case y'all couldn't see on there. I think that looks pretty good though, the first one. Everett, you wanna go over the schedule?
And they are pedestrian activated crosswalk signs, right?
Oh,
So-
yes,
so
sir.
they won't be flashing when nobody's walking across.
Yes, sir, yeah, I forgot to mention that, yes, yeah, they'll be,
So do they time them so there's enough time for a wheelchair person to get across? I imagine they can.
I'm sure there's some kind of timing. I'll have to, I don't know exactly, I don't know.
Right, that'll all
You
be
guys know.
programmed when we set them. All right, so our construction schedule is, we're gonna start on 10/8/2018, which is next Monday, weather permitting. It looks like we got some rain coming. But we set this up in 4 phases. So our first phase is our basic saw cut, setting up our work zones, wet curb for the ramps and stuff like that, and remove the debris. Our phase 2 will dig out the vegetation, set our grades, sub-base, and set forms. And our phase 3 will pull ramps, landings, sidewalk, paint striping, and place our signs at that time so everything's in place when we're ready to move on with our final phase, which is striping and our cleanup on our crosswalks with our thermoplastic, and we do our backfill and our found air grade work and stuff like that, and we'll be ready to open the phases. So
Was there any consideration for safety?
we'll have all our work zones for our safety stuff. We'll have it all down to 1 lane going through there, each direction. So we'll shut down the out two lanes there. Any other questions?
Haven't we talked about this before?
Yes.
We've talked about it.
But I mean, haven't we made a decision about it before? Didn't we decide one way or the other?
Yes.
It's already out to
Yeah,
contract.
they're just showing us the plan to put it together.
Well, if you're talking several months ago, there was a budget amendment made that included, are you talking about years ago?
No, I was thinking that, no, would have been longer. I thought there was one that we said we were not gonna approve or do.
There's
Is that a
never
different
been
place?
a vote of the commission not to do this.
That was the
that I'm aware
previous
of.
Is that a
commission.
different,
There was
but is
some,
it a different spot or is it the same
No,
spot?
same spot.
And didn't we,
It came
No.
up. It
There
came
were
up.
some commissioners that expressed that they weren't
were
in
we
favor of
not,
it.
we're not gonna do
But
it?
they're no longer with us.
But now we are gonna do it?
Yes,
The same, okay.
Well, but this has already been
I just-
approved
yes.
Yeah,
I
and
was just trying
awarded
to remember
and.
which
I don't think
If
this
is
is
the
ever,
same place we talked about.
I don't recall this ever even being talked about in a meeting before. It clearly has been talked about.
I think we covered it during a budget
It was
session
talked
a
about in budget
couple or 3
hearings.
years ago.
Yeah.
We covered it in the past budget.
Or is it?
No,
the
I mean,
one-
sorry,
or
we
was it
talked
the one
about
with
it during a
Meadows
budget
that I'm
session
thinking
and
of
then
that
didn't add it.
mixed?
Yeah, they could
Um,
close
There was
that
one
school
that-
down.
there
We
was one
did
that we
recently add it,
mixed.
I
Yeah,
believe
yeah.
in the last budget.
Oh, no, it's,
Yeah,
I
we
mean,
got
it's
one
in this
out
one
there
clearly,
by
yeah.
the tag.
I just mean it came up once before and
There's the one
didn't go
down
anywhere.
town, yeah, back here right across from the
It's been a while.
I was thinking that was the one that we
I will
mixed.
just say that the citizens that have requested this for years have been persistent. And regardless of what previous thoughts or decisions were, they have continued to come. There has been lots of discussion in ADA meetings about this project, maybe in apparently about budgets, maybe other things in commission meetings. Certainly outside of commission meetings, lobbying their commissioner or commissioners that aren't even their commissioner.
Gerald and I have actually gone and met with the people there at the Commons on a couple of occasions, and it's, there is a, you know, the Commons is a large group of people, many of them that have mobility issues and aren't young enough or well enough to sprint across that street against traffic, and they're looking for a way that they can access some of the businesses that are on the other side of the street. And to me, it's something we should have done several years ago. Hopefully, the ones that really kicked this off to begin with haven't passed on, waiting for us to do so.
Is this the one with the gentleman that he's come to the meeting and brought maps and talks about, advocates for his daughter?
No, he was on, believe it or not, he was on a different project.
Well, that's what I was trying to remember what project
He was
that
on
was.
building ramps to crosswalks. That was
Maybe
his
that was
deal.
it.
Yeah, I remember him too. I don't think he ever got any satisfaction either.
We hope somebody gets satisfaction out of this.
Yes,
We're gonna be doing something.
perhaps me, if nobody else.
Yeah.
Thank you. No, it looks good.
Thank you.
Thanks, Glenn.
We are adjourned. We'll meet upstairs at 6:30.
Who's there?
All right.
Pretty exciting for
Thank you for watching the Enid City Commission study session. All meetings are broadcast on local cable channel 12 and in high definition on channel 112. In addition, the study session is live streamed on the web at enidtv.org. If you have any questions or comments regarding this broadcast, please visit the City of Enid website at enid.org.